my experience anyways with my facilitators was that it was very calming and supportive. So yes, we had struggles. I'm not going to say there weren't times where I was kind of like pained by the clocks, but it was never like, it was never harsh, and it was always really like warm and safe, which I think helped me learn quite a bit faster, because I don't tend to work as well when I'm feeling like stressed out and threatened. That was one of the main things I learned right off the bat from my experience with clocks, was like the 3 hallmark ADHD issues, which I'd never really gotten to know within myself until I was in that really focused environment of just trying to figure out these clocks. It was like boredom, being tired, and then kind of like losing confidence. And those 3 things really messed up my performance. And I had to learn how to kind of like regulate myself and manage them. It gave me another opportunity, a unique opportunity, because it's so focused. You don't have other distractions around. It's kind of one track. And so I was able to work with that in a very constructive way that changed really quickly. It was kind of surprising. Yeah. I mean, it took a bit for myself to notice the changes outside of the clocks. About 3 or 4 months in, I started to actually think like, oh, my thinking is different, and I'm feeling a little sharper, and I'm noticing things. But the actual performance in the clocks, which is all, digitized, and it gives you metrics to see where you're at. Yeah, it definitely made a difference to apply my somatic knowledge to the whole thing. Well, when I first started, I was in the classroom environment, all virtual, but still I had a bunch of other people around me who were working on their own Arrowsmith exercises. So different things than what I was doing in some cases. And also a different age group. For the most part, I was the oldest person there. And so they were having their youth and teenage experiences alongside me, which was really interesting and cool to see these kids working on what they're working on and the stuff that was happening between them. And it was also amazing to have a couple of really great facilitators around who could help me with my issues that were coming up. I struggled a lot at the beginning with the typing. My fingers were not keeping up with my brain. And so facilitator mode really saved my butt. Yeah, so that was really cool. Now that I am on my own and I'm just seeing my advisor every week or 2, it's different. I still love it, because sometimes that stuff that I mentioned before was a little distracting. But yeah, at this point, I'm just in love with the clock. So I'm motivated to do it on my own. I don't really need a class time to hold me to a schedule, if that makes sense. It was frustrating at times to mess up the typing when I was like, I actually had that one right, and then my finger just kind of went, whoa. But it was just part of the process. And there were lots of times that I got frustrated with various things and roadblocks, and honestly, overcoming that frustration and learning how to manage myself through it is, and I think, the most useful thing that has actually come out of this, because there's so with ADHD, there's so many things that I'm interested in and excited about and want to do. And so it's really easy when something gets, it sounds silly, but it's really easy when something gets hard to move to something else, because there's a gazillion things that I'm curious about. And so following through with stuff can be really challenging, especially when it's boring or hard, which is most things. Eventually they become boring or hard if you want to follow through anyways. So yeah, overcoming that has been super, super valuable to me. I've just become more more consistent, I would say, overall in the rest of my life, which is so much healthier. First thing I noticed was really weird. I was around somewhere in my third month of clocks. And strangely enough, I noticed that my brain, like the background processing, was getting a little bit sharper because I speak Spanish as a second language fluently, but my experience has always been that only really kind of kicks in the fluency once I'm sort of immersed in it. So if I go to Mexico, about 1 or 2 days in, it's like, yeah, I speak Spanish again. And then I come back to Canada and I forget it all. It's just, I don't know. And my first noticing was around month 3. I was listening to Spanish music, which I always do anyways. And instead of my brain just kind of like tuning out the lyrics and enjoying them as sound and music, I was actually unconsciously translating it and understanding it, like not understanding it in English, but I was just understanding the lyrics without trying to, which was very odd at first. I was like, what's happening there? And I figured it's got to be the clocks because that's really the only thing I'd changed that way. Other things changed later. After I took a break and then came back and I started to really apply myself to the higher levels, I started to notice other interesting changes. More like what I was talking about with the consistency and just my general tolerance for discomfort has been, that's been somewhat recent. In like the 6-8 hand levels, I just became way more tough.
Yeah. How are these changes kind of translating into your work life, your personal life? Like, where are you noticing the outcomes really paying off the most?
I'm getting better organized. And I think that applies to all those lives that you're talking about, because there's just so many things that I want to do. And I think everybody goes through this to some extent. It's pretty overwhelming to be a person in the world that we live in today. We've got a lot of different information coming in at us, and we're expected to do a lot of things. And I'm a single woman supporting myself, and I also so I have to make money, and then I have to also have relationships and with all my friends and my family, and like dating, looking for a partner, and I have a cat who depends on me. And it's just like, sometimes it feels really overwhelming. It's a lot. And being better organized makes it all so much better. I sleep better because I'm less anxious. I get more done, so I feel better about myself. And I'm able to focus on my priorities. So, I'm nourishing the friendships that count, and walking away from the relationships that stress me out too much. And I'm making huge gains in my career, which is really exciting. Finished my Pilates teacher training shortly after I began the clocks. And so now I'm working in that field, and also looking at more training options in other somatic disciplines that interest me. I'm starting to think about maybe going back to school, like formal education, and doing my master's even. It's just, it's made a huge difference in pretty much all domains of my life.